neighbors, Akibataku here. You know there's this old saying goes something along the lines of, we're our own worst critic? Well, honestly, I'm not sure what to think of that, because if there's any form of truth to it, then I would be condemning what I'm doing right now. But hey, honestly, this doesn't feel so bad.
Here we have a movie. It has a plot, character arcs, cinematography, and all of that is formed in a beginning, middle, and an end.
Wait, that's it?
But I want more, damn it. I want a story that's connecting to several medias together. I want a cinematic universe. And apparently everybody else does too. Plenty of studios in the past have shared this sentiment.
You mean I'm not alone?
Yeah, that's right. At one point, cinematic universes were the hot norm. If you do not know what's a cinematic universe,
how the hell you make it this far?
Basically, it is the idea that many forms of media, whether it be movies, TV shows, or books, could come to form one singular greater story, whether it be the MCU or the DCEU, or hell, maybe even the Teletubbies can have their own cinematic universe. I said maybe! So it may come to you all as a surprise that Japan also wanted to have a dive into their own cinematic universes, which honestly I don't blame you if you don't know that fact. Because unlike Marvel, where it is just one big ass corporation making everything, Japanese medium is often made independently, so a crossover is often very unlikely. The most often thing in Japanese medium that gets a crossover is really tokusatsu, or more specifically Godzilla, because god damn it, they don't know when to stop! Because of this, anime is also no exception. And before any of you say that the Fate series is the most complex anime cinematic universe out there, clearly none of you guys have heard of Pretty Cure.
But though maybe Time Island could be on the list.
But if there is one cinematic universe I bet you all have never heard of, I bet that one would be the Death Note live-action cinematic universe. And if any of you think I am talking about the Netflix one, you either 1. Worship Kira as your Lord and Savior, or 2. You are the same guys who took my bottle of lecithin. But no matter what the situation is, there is one thing that's absolutely clear.
Give me back my bottle. Come on. Don't be a pussy. Give it to me back.
So I'm gonna introduce you all to the Death Note cinematic universe. And before I go, 1. I must say, I have not seen every Death Note material out there. I have only watched the original anime, I haven't read the manga, I haven't read all the light novels, and I haven't played the video games, but I have seen the musical.
No joke though, it's actually pretty good.
Oh, and also yes, there was the Death Note drama series, but I'll talk about that another time because it is not a part of the universe. And one last thing to note is that this is not going to be a deep dive analysis of each film, and this is more of an overview of the whole series. I think I will talk about each film individually someday, but for now I want to talk about them as a series. Also, there will be spoilers, but hey, I think you all expected that. This is Death Note, come on. The whole thing starts off with the first Death Note movie released back at June of 17, 2006, which, fun fact, came out before the anime. So yes, technically, this is not an anime live-action adaptation. This is a manga live-action adaptation, and yes, there is a difference. This movie and its sequel is directed by Suzuki Kaneko, which actually has a strong resume under him, including being the director of the original Gamera trilogy, and he assisted in the making of Ultraman Max.
Oh!
Yagami Light here is played by Fujiwara Tatsuya, and yes, he is the Battle Royale guy. L is also played by Matsuyama Kenichi, who actually voiced Gelus in the anime.
Huh, neat.
So clearly there is some good people behind this. So how's the actual movie? Well, honestly, it is pretty good. It mainly followed the actual story to a teeth. Each actors, while not perfect, they actually understood what each character represented and they did their best performing it. They barely make any liberties in this film, and I actually pay some real respect to the source material. And while each actors did their best to perform their roles, Kenichi Matsuyama here played a very good L. He manages to capture the weirdness and charm of L without looking like a cosplayer wannabe.
Don't worry you all, I know you all exist out there.
This is how I envision a living L. And honestly, Matsuyama Kenshi here practically is the perfect guy to play L, and he looked like he had a blast playing as him.
I'm certain you are curious to find out more about me.
And even in a 2-hour runtime, they can fit many things in here like most of chapter 1 to 22. Of course, many things were cut out, but I think they did a decent job of deciding whether to cut out necessary or unnecessary parts. But to get the gata out of the room, yeah, the CG has not aged well at all. I mean, not at all. But if I have to be honest here, I have seen many Japanese media since childhood, so bad CG in J media at this point does not even faze me. But if I do have to criticize one thing about this movie, it is the editing. Not that there is anything wrong with it or is annoying or whatever, it is just kinda boring. The cinematography, the editing, the coloring, the pacing. I've seen older Japanese cinematic films have better editing than this. On a lower budget. If anything, I think this movie and the sequel originally was supposed to be a TV drama, but then later they decided to paste it into a movie. I don't have much proof of this nor evidence, but based on the fact that the Ryuk model here was later reused in the 2015 drama series, kinda supports that theory of mine. And if that is the case, then boy they are lucky, because it could have been a lot worse. A lot worse! But besides that, for a manga live action adaptation, it is actually very good. 8 out of 10. The original 2006 film was soon given a sequel titled Death Note 2: The Last Name. It mostly have the same people working for this one too, which further supports my suspicion that this was supposed to be a TV series, but let's not worry about that right now. This film mostly focuses on the second hero arc and begins with new characters like Misa here, played by Erika Tota, and she does a pretty good job portraying her without making her a bit too outlandish or annoying. Once again, this strongly follows what has happened in both the second hero arc and the Yotsuba arc, but this time however, this is where everything changes, and this is where the spoiler comes in. Instead of manipulating Rem into killing L and the rest of the team, resulting in Light winning and the near Mellow arc, this time the film takes a surprisingly smart twist which actually resulted in the victory of L. I only say surprisingly because the way they achieve it is actually brilliant, so unlike the anime where it left a rather controversial ending, this one just ends here. A basic yet powerful resolution. There is closure and the story ends in a rather satisfying way. Light is defeated, the Death Note is no more, Ryuk is off to find his own stuff, and L passes away as a hero. Of course, this would mean that the Mellow and N arc never happens and making a new sequel will be harder, but honestly, that's okay. This duology is actually great on its own. And honestly, seeing how these two films managed to capture Death Note so well, I say these films can work for those who haven't seen Death Note or want to get into Death Note but do not have time to watch the anime or read the manga. While this movie is far from flawless, it mostly has the same problems as the previous movie. So overall, 9 out of 10. It has been great. Is it better than the manga or anime? Meh, it depends on what you are looking for. But if you want a simple and quick way to watch Death Note, then this movie can be the perfect way for you. Of course, there is now plenty of demand for more content out of the universe. Ever since the ending of the last one, it is clear that this will now become its own thing. The first original content for the cinematic universe is L Change the World, and before anybody asks, no, this is not an adaptation of the novel of the same name.
Oh, thank God!
But if you are looking for a new Death Note material to stimulate your intellectual scrotums, well, you're not gonna get that. If anything, this movie is only for those who want to see more of Kenji Matsuyama's performance of L, which honestly I can't blame them. This guy can do many things. And honestly, This is what this film is. More L content. The plot makes no sense. The characters makes no sense. They do weird things. For example, they suddenly decided that they will add N to this universe, so they have this boy from Thailand who barely have any quirks besides being good at math, give him the name of N, and that's it.
Near is a good name. You'll always be near when someone is saved.
Some of these parts are a bit overdramatic or just nonsensical.
Holy shit!
But honestly, I don't hate it. It is not supposed to be taken seriously. It is just light-hearted fun for the whole family and L Sims, and honestly, I don't mind that. Overall, if you're getting kind of tired from all of the drama and tension and intellectual combat of Death Note but still want more Death Note
For some fucking reason?
then this movie will serve you well. Overall, 7 out of 10. Makes no sense, but it's a lot of fun. Well, here's an interesting one. We have a mini spin-off. This is basically a spin-off that takes place during the events of L Change the World. Originally, Matsuda was supposed to appear in the movie to properly establish himself in the continuity, which is not a surprising thing because many actors actually came back in the movie to reprise their roles. But due to the interest of keeping the film shorter, they decided to cut him out.
Oh wow, even the filmmakers can't help but have a jab at Matsuda. Oh, the poor guy can't catch a break.
Well, that is his specialty.
I can hear you, you know.
But instead of cutting him out of existence, they decided to turn it into a short film titled The Man Who Was Made a Fool by L the Most, Detective Matsuda's Case File. The screenwriter must be having a field day on the job. Either that or he had a disease which spread across Japan called Make Your Titles As Long As Possible syndrome. Right off the bat, I honestly don't know what to make of this. While they did use the deleted scenes, they also added new footage for context, which resulted that it is beyond obvious which one is the deleted scene and which one is the new footage. It is just clashing aesthetics. Hell, if you think the anime live-action movies look like porn parodies, this new footage here really gave off that vibe.
But though, to be fair, a porno starring Matsuda would not be the worst thing in the world. You know there are plenty of Death Note fans out there who will pay for that shit.
But besides that, honestly, the new footage barely adds anything until the very end, where Matsuda finally had his resolution with L. Honestly, the scenes they removed from the actual L movie is barely 4 minutes long, and they could have honestly kept it in. Not to mention, if they really wanted to add more scenes, they could have just ended the ending of this short film at the end of L Change the World as a post-credit scene. That would have been so much better. All the rest of the additional footage just adds unnecessary conflict. So with that being said, I think you can skip this entry. It would have been a great treat for Matsuda fans or even Death Note fans, but besides that, you aren't really missing out much. Not to mention, the only way to watch this movie was through the DVD copy of L Change the World, which is only available in Japan. This kind of short film bonuses in DVDs or Blu-ray copies are actually quite common in Japanese media, so while it is not a bad inclusion, I just felt it was unnecessary. So overall, 6 out of 10. The talking between L and Matsuda was great, but besides that, it adds nothing.
Oi, guys, do you smell that? It's the golden season!
It's 2016's, one of the best Japanese movie periods. Oh, I don't know, have you heard of Your Name, Shin Godzilla, Gundam Thunderbolt, Kizumonogatari, Excel Worlds, A Silent Voice, Assassination Classroom?
Holy shit, there's so much good movies coming out of Japan during this season. There's so many good things to watch. What else do we have? We have Terraformers. Fuck, go back!
The point is, 2016 is the perfect year for a comeback. And for the Death Note cinematic universe, this could work. It has been 10 years since, so let's do this! The first thing they made was a web mini-series titled Death Note New Generations. There's 3 episodes and they were released on... Hulu, Japan.
Alright guys, come on. I know you don't like streaming services, but you don't have to make it obvious.
New Generations was released as a mini-series to promote the upcoming movie. Spoilers, kinda. Each 3 episodes build up on the 3 main characters. First of all, we have Mishima, the Death Note otaku. Basically, Mishima here studies everything about the Death Note, and for a protagonist, he is honestly okay. I don't like him, but I don't hate him. The next one is the new L, Ryuzaki. Yes, that is his name this time. Ryuzaki here is one I have complicated feelings for. On one hand, I actually really like his personality. He is full of himself and quirky and definitely carries the essence of L. But on the other hand, apparently he is the clone child of L, which is kinda stupid. I don't know, I have never been a fan of cloning being used in this manner. And for the third and final character, the cyber terrorist Shin. He is a Kira worshipper and definitely does not remotely piss me off the slightest. He is originally haunted by a serial killer who murdered his family, but was freed by Kira, so now he dedicated his terrorism to Kira. So that's all the 3 characters. Honestly, I think I will give this series a pass, and it's not really a full-fledged series but more of a promotional material, but granted it's actually a very good one. It crams even some callbacks to the previous movies, which I respect, but for now, time to get to the real good stuff. We now finally come to the grand finale of the whole series, Death Note Light Up the New World. This movie was crazy ambitious during its time. Light Up the New World was made out to be this cinematic masterpiece. To give you an idea of how big it was, it defeated Your Name in the opening weekend at the box office. It is the 10th highest grossing film in Japan of 2016. It had a J-pop star featured to make the songs for it, who is Amuro Namine. The music and the OST was composed by legendary composer Yamada Yukata. And it spawned, well, this.
Yes, Japan. I will buy and consume.
This also has the bold move to be its own original thing, as the sequel to the Death Note cinematic universe, not based on any prior Death Note material. This film was directed by Sato Shizuke, who is actually famous for making several anime manga live-action adaptations like Gantz, Inuyashiki, I Am a Hero, Bleach, Library Wars, and Alice in Borderland.
Okay, I haven't seen this one, so I can't say anything about it yet.
So with all of that being said, how was it? Well, for being an original sequel to a Death Note property, it is actually very good. Basically, after what Kira has done to the world, the Death King decided to turn this into a game to see which Shinigami can find the next Kira. Whoever did will become the next king. The 6 Death Notes will be plunged into the world and the game is on. It once again follows the 3 main characters I mentioned earlier, and throughout the film, it is a tight competition to see who can collect all 6 Death Notes. They even managed to cram in some callbacks to the original Death Note films, like having both L and Light coming back in minor roles, and honestly, even after all this time, they still look great. They even managed to cram in some returning characters from the past movies, like Matsuda here played by Ayoma Sota, or even Ereka Tota as Misa again, and once again, even after 10 years later, they are still good in action. The film manages to actually pay respects to all of the returning characters while introducing the new ones, and holy fuck did they crank up the budget for the Shinigami, they look amazing here. The plot itself, while it is basically a crime movie, it is actually a very entertaining one. All the cast played their roles very well. Even at Misa's death, I felt quite emotional for her, and this is coming from someone who does not give a shit about Misa. Of course, this film is not immune to problems. One of the problems it faces is the fact that it sometimes takes a bit too slow to establish certain scenes, and I felt like the whole 6 Death Note concept is not really taken full advantage of, which honestly is kind of understandable. You can't really make this into a 2-hour movie, and they even hinted at the idea that they could make a sequel to all this. And as for sequel baiting, there is actually potential here. For example, Both N and Mello has basically never appeared throughout the whole series. Nier did show up in the L spin-off and New Generation, but that's about it. So for the next film, it can totally be about them. And considering the fact that at the end of this movie, it has been established that 4 out of the 6 Death Note has been stolen by quote-unquote terrorists, so this could actually be them. And that's another thing. Even at the end of this movie, and many people have divisive opinions about it, many Death Note fans have actually gathered and give out theories of where this series could go, because it is far from over. And honestly, I think this is where a movie, and by extension a cinematic universe, succeeds. It is when the communities are formed around it, and people start to speculate what could come next. So overall, this movie has actually accomplished a lot, and I like it. 9 out of 10.
So that was the entire Death Note cinematic universe. So what do I make of it? Well, honestly, at the beginning, this is literally just nothing but a scientific experiment. And it honestly could have gone wrong, really wrong. But somehow, it didn't. It turned out to be something that's actually worth checking out. Because for once, it was trying to pay respects to what Death Note is supposed to be. Hell, I even argue that even though it makes so much differences, it is still good on its own. Hell, with those differences alone, I think you can actually show this to people who are not Death Note fans, and they could possibly become Death Note fans through this. So overall, while yes, this is not flawless and by any means, but it's still actually worth checking out. And for once in my life, I would honestly recommend this just as much as the actual anime source material, and for that, it has earned my deepest respects. Now let's talk about the Netflix universe.